Hello? Can you all hear me? I'm hoping everybody can hear me.
I can hear you.
Perfect, thank you. Oh, it's nice to see so many people on already. Okay. It's got a few names popping up. Welcome, Margaret. Fiona, welcome. Linda. We'll give it a couple more minutes just for people to come on. Ooh. Welcome, Lindsay. Oh, Linda saying her mic and camera won't work. Linda, do you want to try and log out and in?
I think that's just because it's a webinar, I think.
I need her to check the chat for me.
Oh, right.
Oh, we've got a few more people coming on. Welcome, Philippa. Okay, we'll make a start. With me. Bear with me. Can you all see my screen? Clara, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see there we go. I can see the first page now. Family wellbeing. Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, I don't know what's going on here. You guys can see, but I can't. Oh, I might just log back out and log back in. Just bear with me 1 second. Hello, I'm hoping this works. Bear with me a second. I'm hoping this now works. Oh, fantastic. So Clara, can you tell me if you can just see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen. Thank you.
Brilliant. Sorry about that. That worked perfectly. Brilliant. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Apologies for that little glitch. So good afternoon. Thank you for joining our webinar on wellbeing in families today. So my name is Karen and I'm the Clinical Operations Manager here at CiC. So my role here is I oversee the front function and I manage our advice line function, which is a support network. But my background is also a psychotherapist. So I've been a psychotherapist now for almost 20 years. And I work with individuals of all ages. So that goes from adults, children and families. Aside from my CiC role here, I also work with young people at the moment, those who have been impacted by domestic abuse, and young people who are at risk of violent crime as well. So that can be anything from drug-related violence, knife crime, things like that as well. So my passion has always been to support young people and their families. But aside from that, aside from my career and my working life, I'm also a single mum of two. I'm a single mum of two boys, which has its own challenges. So today we're going to be having a live discussion around family well-being. Managing a family can be really challenging. So what we're going to be looking at is the importance of self-care, boundaries, and how this can foster positive family well-being. We're going to be looking at effective strategies and practical tips on how we can create a nurturing family environment. There will be an opportunity at the end to ask any questions, but please do feel free to use the chat function throughout. I do have Linda here, who I'm hoping can start, who I'm hoping will be able to speak out if there is something in the chat. So please do use the chat function and just share any ideas and experiences that you might have. Any of your own hints and tips will be really helpful, because there'll be a lot of things that everybody does already that will be really helpful to share with the group. Okay. So today what we're going to be looking at is family wellbeing as a whole to start with. We're going to have most of the focus will be around parental wellbeing, but we will also look at children's wellbeing, some family strategies, and we will finish with your questions towards the end. So what is family wellbeing?
Kieran, sorry, is this just going to be recorded just because I can't activate it?
Oh, sorry, I should have said it did come up with being recorded.
Did it?
Hold
Okay,
on a
perfect.
second.
Is that the live bit?
Let me double check. So just to let you all know, hold on a second. Yeah, it did come up with it does say live on there. Is that recording?
I'm not too sure. Can you, if you
hit,
click on the three dots and try to click record, does
yeah,
it?
I've hit start recording.
Okay, perfect.
So just to let you all know, this session is going to be recorded. So if there are any objections to that, please do let me know. I have popped on there. Somebody just put, I don't think it's been recorded. I've hit. Can you do it from your side, Clara?
Yeah, I'm trying and it's not letting me.
It's not letting me either. Helen's saying carry on.
Okay. Keep going.
Yeah, it's not letting me. Oh, she said, I'm sure it'll be fine. When I logged in, it did say that as soon as you log in and start the meeting, it'll record, but there's just nothing on here. But just to let everybody know, it is going to be a recorded session. So if there are any issues with that, please do let us know. Okay. So family wellbeing. So what is family wellbeing? So family wellbeing cannot be defined as one single thing, as it incorporates a number of different elements. Okay, so at the centre of family wellbeing is the physical, mental, emotional and social health of any family. And this is to promote growth and development of all of those who make up that family unit. So family wellbeing also includes things such as healthy communication, financial stability and mutual support. So what it does is it sets a baseline for all family members to have the opportunity to pursue their passions, build positive relationships as they develop and grow into the rest of their lives, and to develop important life skills. But in addition, family wellbeing is really important because it gives us all the opportunity as a family to be able to rely on each other, knowing that you've always got somebody there for you. It helps us to create emotional connections. It teaches us what love and support actually is, and it creates that nice baseline for everybody. So having good family wellbeing provides a basis for the future moving forward. So is family wellbeing important? It's absolutely important. Family wellbeing is a vital factor in our overall happiness and our overall life satisfaction. So whilst there are a number of challenges amongst different families, there are various things that families go through. Family wellbeing creates a baseline and an environment where all family members feel safe, they feel secure, and they feel valued. A family's overall well-being can depend on the physical, mental and financial health. And as we've already said, it incorporates a number of other elements as well. But in order to promote family well-being, Physical health can be managed through things such as healthy eating, regular exercise, and preventative health care. And your mental health and emotional well-being can be promoted through positive coping strategies, stress management, and utilising the mental health services that are available. And a level of financial stability is also necessary for families to be able to provide basic needs that each family needs. So in a nutshell, despite any challenges that families go through communication, understanding, commitment, as a family, we can work together to create a positive family unit that's supportive, it's resilient, and therefore is essential to make family well-being a priority so that any member of the family in the household can thrive. So we're going to start looking at parental well-being. So what are the benefits of the whole family's well-being? So whether you're a single mum, whether you're a single dad, or any single parent, or you're a mum or dad, or a carer, the bottom line is we all want what's best for our children. We want our children to be safe, we want them to be fit and healthy, and ultimately we want them to be happy. Okay, so however, with all of those hopes and dreams we have for them, it is really easy to forget about our own health and well-being. So we've all heard the saying that you can't give from an empty cup, or you can't help yourself. You have to help yourself before you can help everybody else. And it's that whole concept of putting your own oxygen mask on before you put anybody else's on. And being a parent is no different to this, because being a parent is a full-time job. It's 24/7. We don't get annual leave. But it's really important to remember that taking care of our own well-being helps us to build resilience, it helps us to cope, and it helps us to cope more effectively with the demands of actually being a parent. So with that said, it's inevitable that life in itself will impact our abilities to focus on our own health and well-being. This can be anything from it can be our own history, our own personal history. It can be our own mental health, the relationships that we're in, or work. I mean, the list is endless on that. So please do feel free to add some points in the chat what you think could actually impact parental well-being. It'll be good to see what other people think as well. Is there anything on there that you feel is quite important that's missed? So what is the impact of any of these situations? We become tired, we become irritable, stressed, and very often we can become quite resentful and bitter as well. And it does raise our anxieties, and ultimately we become quite overwhelmed, which will then lead to us feeling frustrated. As much as we become frustrated towards us, it does then impact our family well-being. So how do we ensure that we manage our own mental health and well-being? So what we're going to do is look at some of the things we can do as parents. And again, it's another endless list of things that we can do as parents, but what we will be doing is focusing on self-care. We'll be focusing on boundaries, parental guilt, and parental burnout as well. So self-care can help replenish a parent's energy, focus, and positivity. When talking about self-care, this doesn't have to be anything time-consuming or expensive. I know a lot of the time when somebody says self-care, you automatically think, oh, I don't have time for that, or that's too expensive. We all do it, but ultimately it really doesn't have to be anything like that. Obviously, it can if you want it to be. By all means, that's absolutely fine. But the bottom line is self-care is about taking some time out. It's about taking time out for you as an individual. Yes, you're a parent, but you're also still a person. And it's really important to make sure you do things for you as an individual. Like I said, it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be something as simple as sitting there just 5 minutes in the peace and quiet when the kids are playing in the garden, or whatever that looks like. It might be meeting a friend, just go and have a coffee. It could even just be sitting having a tea and biscuits. Or it could just be going to the gym, or cooking a meal that you want for a change. It doesn't have to be something your kids always want. It could be something actually you want, and it makes a huge difference to you. It's all about making sure that you find something, whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's a day or a weekend, whatever that looks like, so finding those regular pockets of time and space for you as an individual. I mean, these are just some tips. There is absolutely no right or wrong way to do self-care. It is all about finding something you enjoy, that is your time and your space. I mean, as a parent, we are often overcome with guilt when it comes to self-care. I mean, we are going to go into parental guilt in a little while. But when we think about self-care, it is important to remember that this isn't a selfish thing. Self-care is really important, and we have to get to a space where we change that mindset and recognize that self-care is not selfish. If anything, self-care is quite the opposite. Self-care is about looking after yourself, taking time, little steps, taking regular steps of self-care means that you'll be more resilient as a person, and you'll be more resilient and able to manage the demands of family life. Ultimately, it's a win-win. So boundaries. So we often view boundary setting again as another act of selfishness, but it's not selfish. I mean, is it selfish to put your own well-being first? Is it selfish to want to protect yourself? And is it selfish to want to ensure that you have the energy to support your family? Absolutely not. So when we're thinking about boundaries, especially when you feel so uncomfortable with it, it is important to remind yourself why you're setting boundaries and actually what are the benefits of boundaries. So on that note, I'm going to ask everybody to kind of just put a few things in the chat here. So I'd like to open it up to you all. What do boundaries mean to you? Pop it in the chat. Just when you say boundaries, what does boundaries mean to you as a person? It may be your parental boundaries that you put in place with your kids, whatever that looks like. What are boundaries?
So we've got limits from Louise.
Yeah.
Things you want to live by for your own well-being, respecting my limits and needs, a challenge to enforce, going to bed by 10 o'clock. Lots of people are saying limits. Being able to say no.
Absolutely.
Carving out time for yourself, protection and self-preservation, going to bed early.
Yeah, brilliant. And absolutely, and it's all of those things, because boundaries are not just about one thing. Boundaries are about clearing, somebody's just put knowing what works for you. Yeah, absolutely. Because boundaries are not just one thing. Boundaries are about setting out clear foundations for you, for your children, whether it's extended family, friends, work, your whole lifestyle. So the boundaries are about setting out what works for us. So when we're thinking about ourselves and when we think about us and our lives, we are surrounded by do's and don'ts all the time. And these are all boundaries. And as parents, we set out rules for our children. The school sets out rules, the society sets out rules. And again, all of these are boundaries. I mean, don't get me wrong, we all know that kids will try and push those boundaries, absolutely. But we also make sure there are consequences when they try and do that. So why is it when we're looking at us as parents, we don't actually set our own boundaries? I mean, is that guilt? Is that time? But whatever that reason is, it is important to make sure that we do start looking at setting ourselves some healthy boundaries to ensure that we can manage our own health and well-being so that we can actually support our own family a lot more effectively. So when thinking about boundaries, how do we set boundaries? So we're looking at setting boundaries. What we want to do is look at what do we want and need. So consider, when you're thinking about boundaries, consider what you want as an individual and what do you need, but also consider what your children want and need. And as a family, what is your family network? What do you want and need as a family? And then to think about actually creating those boundaries. Think about, this is what we need, so this is what we're going to put in place. And once you've established what that is, it's about ensuring that you communicate that to those relevant parties. For example, there's always that one person who pops by just when you're in the middle of something, or you've got a deadline, or you're about to go out, or you're doing something really important, and you get that knock at the door, and it's always that same person. So it's about communicating your boundaries with them. It's learning to push back, learning to say no. But don't get me wrong, it doesn't have to, it's not an aggressive no, it's just about being more assertive, and it's the way you'd say no. So for example, things such as, thank you for popping by, and I'd really love spending time with you, but I'm actually just in the middle of something at the moment. But I tell you what, let's arrange a better time, and let's sit down and we can have a really good catch up. And I would just suggest, just in future, give me a ring just so you don't have a wasted journey. Just something like that, a simple conversation. sets out your boundaries, out any sort of hard feelings. And it's the same with kids as well. It's like setting out those boundaries to sort of say, actually, no, that's not okay. You know, this is not the way this is not okay, and let's find a better way to work through things. And I mean, when you're setting boundaries with your children, I mean, that can be anything from routines, no-go areas, limiting things from them, whether it's electronics or whatever their limitations are. But the most important thing to do is remember that it's not selfish. It's not boundaries are not selfish. And even putting limits on the requests that your children make of you are not selfish. In fact, it's actually a necessity. It's a necessity for you and for them. And just remember, the more time you spend on yourself, more time you spend taking care of your own well-being and recharging your own batteries, the more positive energy you'll have to be able to give to your child and your family. So finding a balance between your own needs and finding a balance between your family and your children's needs is something that every parent deserves to discover. And ultimately, it's a win-win situation. You're happier, kids are happier because you're feeling a lot less stressed as well. So we're going to look at parental guilt. And I can honestly say I'm absolutely guilty of this one. I think a lot of people probably here are as well. Parental guilt, it can be absolutely anything from level of screen time the kids have had, or they didn't eat like a full home cooked dinner today and you got them a takeaway, or you've told them off because you're feeling tired, or they've been playing up and you've told them off a little bit more than you normally would, or you've had to put them in school club because you've got held up doing something. Or you're actually struggling with your own emotions. But whatever that looks like, as a parent, there's always something that we end up feeling guilty about. Okay, and what this results in is we end up comparing ourselves to others. But let me tell you now, there is absolutely no such thing as a perfect parent. Yes, we all want to do the best by our children. We want them to be happy, which is why we end up having parental guilt. But comparing ourselves to that family down the road or the family at the school gate that always look really happy and really look fantastic, none of that's perfect. There is absolutely no such thing as that perfect parent. And there's no wrong way to be parents as well. It's all about finding what works for you and works for your family. And whatever that looks like, that will then become perfect for you. So how do we manage parental guilt? So I've got a few tips here in terms of how we can manage, but again, this is about what works for you, okay? So a few things here are focusing on the here and now. So trying to take a step back from that situation and looking at it in the bigger picture. Does it really matter that they had a little bit more screen time today? Is one day going to really have that much of a negative impact on them? And if you're asking yourself that and you're going, actually, it's really not going to matter, maybe it's a case of finding some space for yourself. Take a few minutes of self-care, just to remind yourself that tomorrow is another day. And they are kids. They are kids that will continue to push those boundaries. They will do everything they can to try and push those limits as well. So it's about taking that time out, and it comes back to that piece of self-care all over again. Just focusing on now. Tomorrow is a new day. Focus on today. Talk to other parents. We often shy away from talking to other parents. I know I do. And it's mostly, a lot of the time, I think sometimes it can be out of fear. It can be fear of them judging us, or it can be fear of them misunderstanding, or actually, are they going to think I'm a bad parent because I said that? So, but the fact is, talking to other parents about their experiences and our own experiences, particularly when you're talking to parents who have children of a similar age, or people who have got children who have now grown up, what you'll find is that everybody's in the same boat. You know, everybody has those feelings, and it's okay to have those feelings. It can be really helpful to have that validation, because ultimately what it reminds us of is that perfection doesn't exist. So that validation can be extremely powerful, to know that you're not alone in this, and it is perfectly normal to feel like it's not going the way you want it to do, or, you know, just reviewing your own expectations. That validation can be really helpful. Focus on the positives and the little wins. So rather than feeling guilty about what didn't go right today and what didn't quite go according to plan, try and focus on those little things that did and the positives around you. So, for example, they might have had an extra half an hour or an hour screen time today, but you know what? They ate all their dinner. They didn't moan. They ate it all. There's no complaints, and went straight to bed without a battle. In that, there's always something positive. So always try and focus on those positive little wins. Maintain perspective. Quite often parental guilt comes from us. It comes from us inside. It comes from feeling inadequate. We feel guilty. We feel guilty that we didn't buy them that expensive game that they wanted because we couldn't afford to do that, or we couldn't send them on holiday and they wanted to go on that. They want to go on holiday because all their friends are going on holiday and it's not fair. Yeah, that's usually a common one. It's not fair. But it's about making sure that actually it's reminding yourself that you are doing the best you actually can for them, and your best is good enough. You are good enough and your best is good enough. And it's maintaining that perspective and actually communicating that with the children can go a really long way as well. Explaining to them why you can't go and do that holiday for them, why they can't go and have that expensive game. It can go a really long way to promoting that communication. And I know a lot of this is easy said than done, you know, particularly when you're in that moment and you're feeling overwhelmed, you're in that moment. It is much easier to say than actually do. But this is why that self-care piece that we talked about a little while ago is really important, because that will help you to manage your own emotions and it will help you to feel more in control. And often a lot of the guilt that we experience comes from how we react. Often we were reacting a certain way, and then when you, at the end of the day, you sat there and you're thinking, oh, was it really them I was angry at? Was it really them that actually annoyed me or did something wrong? And sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not as well. But the reality is we are human. Parents are human. We're all people, and sometimes we have our own unresolved issues, or we've got that deadline in the back of your head, which unfortunately, you know, our children can trigger some of those our own historical issues as well. So in those situations, it's really important just to take a pause, just stop for a moment and just reflect yourself on that situation and just focus on the here and now. And remember, it's okay to apologise. In fact, it's a great thing to do. Go back to the child and be like, and go back to whether it's, you might even be your partner, whether it's kids or partner, whatever that looks like, go back to them and apologise and actually be able to have that communication to say, do you know what, that was me. That was my own feelings. That was me that got in the way of that. And I probably shouldn't have reacted like that. And I'm sorry. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, what you're doing is you're modelling fantastic behaviour. You're modelling behaviours that we all want people to pick up on. Did somebody just pop their hand up there? I feel like something just popped up. Oh, okay. That was weird. So, parental burnout. So we often hear people talking about burnout at work. And I'm sure most people, if not everybody, will know what that actually is. We all talk about burnout at work, but how often do people actually talk about parental burnout? Okay. And the thing is, why don't we talk about parental burnout? Is it something that we want to keep to ourselves because we don't want to be judged, or we don't want to be seen not to be that perfect parent? Or actually, is it something that we don't really know about? Something that we just get on with and we don't know about? So I'm going to put this out to everybody again, if you can use the chat, because I'm conscious that you won't all be able to come off mute. So what is parental burnout? What do you think parental burnout is? Anyone?
Struggling to be the parent you want to be, getting overwhelmed when you can't function as you'd like as a parent, devoid of mental energy, not coping with the situation, being a parent with no break, exhausted, exceeding your limits, hitting your limit as a parent, exhausted and can't do any more when you don't react to things in the way you normally would. Exhausted is a big one on there.
Yeah, it's coming up quite a few times, isn't it?
Unable to regulate your own emotions.
Yeah, and it's all of those things. It's absolutely all of those things. I think there's a bit of a delay in the message chats coming up because all of a sudden they just pop up. But it absolutely, so parental burnout, it refers to chronic exhaustion, and that often comes to the demands of balancing parenting with general life and everyday demands. So parental burnout can be caused by a number of things. It can be poor boundaries, lack of support, being spread too thin. And actually, like somebody's just said in there, when you're being a parent, but you don't get a support, because on the side of that, you're probably working as well. And work can be stressful on its own. So parental burnout is so many other things, but it's when it gets to the point where you just can't continue and it's exhausting. Okay. So as a parent, we spend so much of our time trying to get it right and trying to give us the perception that we've got it all figured out, and actually trying to control our own emotions, so we do actually feel like we've got it all figured out. But the fact is, trying to keep on top of all of this is exhausting, and without proper self-care, personal forgiveness, it can all lead to parental burnout. So what are the signs of parental burnout? It can be absolutely anything. You've already talked about a few of them there. Feeling exhausted, feeling irritable all the time, struggling to sleep. Sleep's a big one, because particularly when you've had a busy day, we often go, oh, I'm really tired, but I'm going to just spend some time doing something for myself, and then it feeds into the next day, because you've ended up, it's like, no, 2 o'clock in the morning, you've got to get up at 6. And then sleep becomes a massive issue, because we find that's the only time that we can find in the day to give ourselves a little bit of space. And that's where that self-care comes back into play again. It's giving yourself pockets throughout the day. Brain fog. Brain fog's a really common one. That brain fog is so apparent, and feeling overwhelmed. It's feeling overwhelmed, you're physically and you're mentally exhausted. But with all mental health conditions, it can present itself differently. And actually, what's parental burnout for one person may look totally different for somebody else. And also, parental burnout doesn't happen straight away. There are actually stages. And if it is left untreated, what started as mild burnout can soon progress into something a little bit more severe. So we've got mild burnout, which looks like some of the steps that we've already talked about. But then that one more thing added to that can end up being, the straw that broke the camel's back. Really, you can become quite overwhelmed, become really forgetful, fatigue kicks in. But then if that's left again and we still kind of push through, I think as a family we always do, you go, it'll be fine, I'll just keep pushing, it'll be okay. But then what that ends up leading to is severe burnout. And this is where the fatigue is so much more so that we just struggle day to day to carry out any of those daily tasks. So getting professional help is really important. It might be that you get professional help in the early stages through the GP, maybe a therapist, support groups. There is support out there, but it's making sure that you get the right support that you need. And actually, support doesn't have to look like professional help is a must, particularly when you get to like moderate severe. But if it's slightly mild, you may be able to just reach out to friends and family if they're available for you, or even, colleagues at work can be really helpful as well and be really supportive in terms of giving you a few hints and tips. But again, it goes back to making sure that you create some time for you, create time for self-care, focus on the here and now, and attempt to let go of some of those unrealistic expectations. Because let's face it, we all do it. We all want to be, we've all have a particular way in how we want to be as a family member, how we want to parent. And when that doesn't go the way we wanted it to go, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. But sometimes actually it's realistic. The expectation that we put on ourselves can be super unrealistic. So let's just try to let go of some of those and focus on self-love and self-compassion. So as much as we're talking about these things that can help support you when you are in a stage where you do have parental burnout, but actually having those things in place in the first place, learning to love yourself and learning to forgive yourself, and learning to have a self-care can actually prevent parental burnout in the first place. So this then takes us on to children's wellbeing. So how can parents support their children's wellbeing? So the NSPCC have stated that promoting children and young people's wellbeing is a key part of keeping them safe, helping them develop, and ensuring that they have positive outcomes into adulthood, which we all kind of know. So their well-being is determined by their environment, by families, schools, friends, the community, and people around them. There are so many factors that will come into play when we're talking about children's wellbeing. It has now been reported that the Children's Society have stated that now we're at a state where 1 in 6 children, and I'm talking school-age children, so those 5 to 16-year-olds, 1 in 6 are likely to have a mental health condition. And 52% of 17 to 23-year-olds have experienced their mental health deteriorating in the last 5 years. That's a huge figure. And let's bear in mind, these are only the kids that we know about. These are only the people that we actually have statistics about. There will be so many more young people who are suffering in silence and don't say anything. Are we surprised? We got any surprises to the any surprises to the statistics there, or is it what you'd expect to see? Can just pop your messages in a chat. I'll give it a second because it seems to be taking a little while for them to pop through.
So Louise is surprised, but a lot of people are not surprised. People are expecting it. They think it's higher than those statistics.
And to be honest, I'd probably agree. And this is where I say these are just what's known. This is just what we know. I actually agree. I think it's probably much higher than that. I mean, I'm taking a bit of a guess here, but I'd probably say, what, 1 in 4 children will probably experience a mental health condition the way the world's going. And I'll be surprised if it's not something like 75% of people, young people's mental health deteriorating. And with the increasing demands on the NHS, cost of living crisis, people aren't able to give the children the support they need because the NHS is stacked up against it. It's really difficult for people to get support through the NHS. I read a statistic the other day. I think it was something like 800,000 children across the UK are waiting to be seen by CAMHS. And that's a lot of kids who are requiring support. And actually the cost of living, people can't go private, it's really expensive. And so young people are just not getting the help that they actually need. So what can we do as parents as a way to try and support them? So again, there's just a few hints and tips that we can do. I'd really like to see other people's hints and tips coming through on the chat as well. So let's go through these, and we'll read out some of the ones that people are putting through. So communicate. Encourage open conversations. Communication is so important, even when it feels really uncomfortable for us. Because sometimes, let's face it, there are things we don't want to always talk to our children about. Either we might not think they're ready for, or actually we might feel uncomfortable talking about things. But talking to children and young people, it's really positive because it helps create that two-way open communication, and it opens the door for your child to come to you when they actually do need to, and if they are in that hour of need, they know that I've got that communication there. And as children age, and as we all know, they become teenagers, and suddenly that communication is non-existent. They don't want to talk to us. You'd be lucky if you get a grunt. Yeah, you're lucky if you get a bit of a grunt out of them, or it's going to be a look or something like that. So it's really important to make sure that we've created that communication channel as early as we possibly can, so that when they hit those teenage years and those years where they don't want us around them, it's already there, it's instilled in them, and they know that when it comes to that stage, they know they can still come to you. And a lot of the time when it does come to that stage where communication does become a little bit more difficult with them, that might be your cue to change it up. Don't expect them to come to you. Maybe it's a case of going and just, if they're sitting in their room, go and try and sit with them. I mean, a lot of the time they'll go, get out. But it might be trying to just be in their space in that moment with them, because that will encourage them to go, okay, you're still here. You are still here. Maybe I will talk to you. So just try and change that up and do what your child actually needs in that moment. Go into their space. I mean, creating that communication is a real gradual process. It takes a long time to be able to create that open communication, and it also comes from modeling those good behaviors as well. For example, a little bit like we said earlier, if you feel overwhelmed and you've raised your voice at your child, it's okay to go back and tell your child you're sorry. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If anything, it's so positive to go back and explain to them that actually you know what, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have raised my voice like that. That was me. I was feeling overwhelmed. And the more you explain that to them, the more they will understand that that communication is okay. So alongside communication is listening and just being there with them in their moment. And it's just remember that when your child talks, nothing is more important than that. Particularly when they're little, it's, you know, they might be talking about something random and your mind's ticking about other things that you could be doing in this moment, but it's about trying to focus on what it is that they're saying, because put down that phone, put down that laptop, you know, pause that TV program that you're watching, because in that moment, nothing is more important than making sure that your child feels heard, because that will really help going forward and it will really help to create that family well-being. Okay, it provides that good basis for good communication skills going forward. Set boundaries, as we've already said, boundaries are so important, and it is never too early or ever too late to start setting those boundaries. Don't be wrong, it becomes harder as they get older, but trying to set them as early as possible is always a positive. And as beneficial as boundaries are for us as parents, it's equally as important for young people as well. Boundaries can help them feel supported. It helps them to feel safe, and it helps them to feel secure. They don't always know it. They in fact, they probably think, no, you're just being horrible to me. But actually, as they grow up, they will realise it has helped keep them feeling safe and help them feel supported. Because ultimately, we're setting them up for the future, for when they go off on their own into the big wide world. Because let's face it, boundaries are everywhere. Boundaries are at school, home, work, society. So the sooner that they can learn that there are boundaries and how to instill boundaries, the better it is for them. It will help to keep them safe, and it will be easier for them in the long run. Setting routines, again, this sounds like something that can be really simple and almost sounds a little bit pointless, but actually it can be really help to ground children, young people, and actually as a family to set in routines. And it comes back to those boundaries again, knowing that they've got something that they have to stick to. Also, having a good routine promotes positivity around the house. Things such as a sleep pattern, like good routine in terms of sleep. What time do they go to sleep? What time is a positive time for them to go to sleep? Can really help, because sleep is so important to aid health and well-being. And again, sleep is all part of self-care. It's teaching them about self-care. As with us, self-care, it can be anything that interests them. It's just as long as it's space for them to sit with their thoughts and sit with their feelings. Equally, self-care is equally important in terms of grounding. It's really important to teach children grounding techniques and mindfulness. I think as a nation, we've only just started to realise how important grounding ourselves is. But it doesn't have to be your typical. I know young people often think when you say mindfulness, they think it's sitting there with your arms crossed and like sitting there with your hands up. It's absolutely not. It's really not. It doesn't have to be anything like that. I mean, it can be if that's what they want to do, but it really doesn't have to be. Grounding techniques is about teaching the basis and allowing them to use it in a way that suits them. For example, things such as breathing techniques. You can have very basic breathing techniques such as belly breathing, so ensuring that they focus their oxygen into going into their belly. You've got the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't know if many of you know what that is, but it's about using your senses. It's about using your 5 senses. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, or 3 things you can touch, and those sort of things. So it's using that, it's your smell, using all of your senses, and using that alongside your breathing techniques is really good, particularly when they're feeling overly anxious. And you need a grounding technique to kind of keep them in the here and now. So reflection and gratitude. Reflection and gratitude is all equally as important as grounding techniques and self-care, because it encourages children to reflect on their day. I mean, it's ideally you want to do it every day, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be every few days, once a week, whatever that works for your family. But to encourage children and young people to reflect on what their day looks like. And it's equally important to make sure that you encourage them to think about depending on their age, about 1 to 3 good things that have happened in the day, and 3 things that they're grateful for that have happened in the day. Sorry, it's a really good way to encourage open conversations, but it also allows them to sit and reflect on their day. This is really helpful when they think they've had a really bad day, or they have had a really bad day, because actually particularly young people, especially when they get to like that teenage phase, one small thing that can happen in their day to them will feel like it's the end of the world. Suddenly they feel like they've got this, what their life is falling apart, and it is absolutely horrendous, and everything is going wrong in their life. But actually teaching them and encouraging them to reflect, look at gratitudes helps to ground them and remind them that it may have just been that moment. It was a moment where something went wrong for you, or it might have been half a day, or actually it might have just been a bad day, but there will always be some good in that. And it may be that actually the good is I've got another day tomorrow. Whatever that looks like, it's about teaching them that there is always something good, and it encourages them to pick out those good processes. And journaling is a great way to encourage reflection. Good old pen and paper is one of the most effective ways to do journaling, because there's something really powerful about expressing your thoughts through pen to paper. It's a great way to physically release those thoughts that you've got, and actually put them down somewhere, because it prevents us from feeling full. I mean, that's useful for us as adults as well, but for young people, it's really good. But of course, pen and paper doesn't work for everybody. I mean, some of the young people I work with, some of them are really into music, and at the end of the day, they will create a song about their day. They will create, a lot of them like sort of like rap music and things like that, where they'll use music to create a journal. Or some of them will talk into their phones. That's quite common now, voice noting yourself. It's whatever that looks like for you. Journaling doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be pen and paper. It doesn't have to be just dull. It can be adventurous with it. It can be absolutely anything. It's just about making sure you find what works for your family and what works for your child as well. Because there's no right or wrong way of doing it. It's just about making sure that they have time and space to reflect. Okay. So although sort of these things are things we can do as parents to support our children's well-being, please do remember that if you do need professional help and you feel your child needs professional help, do reach out and access the support. And there's absolutely no shame and nothing wrong in ensuring that your child gets the help that they actually need. We're going to come on to now in terms of what we can do and what signs to look out for if our children are really struggling. But I just wanted to go to the chat. Is there anything in the chat that you feel might work well in terms of promoting children's well-being? Is there anything anybody's probably tried, or anything that you think would be quite positive?
So Louise has said that she finds that she gets most out of the kids right before they go to sleep.
That is actually quite common. That's really a common one. I think it's when they're really young, I think they start it as a way to stop themselves from going to sleep so they can stay up a little bit, because that's where you get the million questions. But actually, as they get older, it becomes the time and the space to be able to create those conversations with them.
So Nikki's saying she finds taking her son out into nature and talking helps less distractions. Emma said the same time outdoors helps my younger children. I really notice that they need that time to burn off energy to manage their mental health. Victoria's saying finding shared interests and reading with them.
Yeah, fantastic. And actually the nature one we're going to come on to later in terms of family strategies. So that's a good one. I'm glad that's come out already. And it's finding what works for your kids, and that shared interest is always a great one because it helps them feel connected. It helps them know you're there. So I'm going to look at I'm going to share a few signs to look out for with our children to help us to recognise when they might need professional support, because there's things that we can do as parents in terms of the day-to-day, but sometimes, unfortunately, children do experience mental health problems, and mental health issues will take over. So it's really important to know that we can recognise some of those signs. Okay, so some of the things can be just be more sad or upset and crying more than they ever normally would be, and actually they're managing that in an aggressive way. They might become a lot more aggressive than they ever have been, or they're trying to avoid social situations. But normally that child that would normally be the first one there at that birthday party suddenly going, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. It's a bit of a kind of telltale sign that something's happening for them. Are they a bit more restless? Is there change into the way they're eating, sleeping? They regressed. That's normally one where regressing, where they haven't wet the bed since they were 3 years old, and now suddenly they've hit 12 and suddenly they're wetting the bed again. It's looking out for those signs to go, what's happening here. And of course, these won't apply to everyone. These are just some of the signs that can come up. But the bottom line is, you know your child. If they're acting different, in the first instance, of course, try and speak to them, because you've already set those communication lines out for them. Try to speak to them and understand what's happening. And if you do need to seek, the necessary support, do try and reach out to get that. It will be beneficial for them. And a lot of schools now are trying to get more counsellors on board as well. So it might be really helpful to try and speak to the school. School can be great. So it's just about making sure you get the support that they need. So family wellbeing. So how can we as parents support our children's wellbeing, but also do it in a more family orientated way? So some of the things I want to look at is what we can do as a family to bring it all together to encourage positive family wellbeing. And again, do feel free to add any suggestions that you've got, because I think this is one where everybody's got their own little tips and things that they do as a family. So it'd be really great to hear some of those. So I'm going to go through some that we've got at the moment. It's family time. Doing something together. That might be, you've got a particular time of the day. It might be a Friday night, you know, everybody's off on Friday night, Friday evening, you're all off. And actually, you know, the weekend's coming up, might be movie night, get the popcorn out or whatever that looks like, might be a few snacks. Or Saturday morning board games, could be just going for walks together, just something that you have a set time, that this is our family time. This is a connection away from all of those electronics. Whatever that looks like, just find a bit of time for you as a family to do something together, just to help to reconnect. Got family walks, I know a few of you have already said that. Find a time that suits everybody, go out for a family. And it is, for that reason, it actually avoids any sort of distractions for you, for them, for all of you as a family. Being out in nature helps promote that sort of positive endorphins, and it can encourage those communication levels. Routine and boundaries, and I know we've already talked a lot about this, but it's about finding good routines and boundaries that works for you as a family. It might be something like sitting together at the dinner table at dinner time. Nobody's allowed their electronics. I mean, that's something we do, is everybody has to sit together at the dinner table and nobody's allowed any electronics at the table. The TV's not allowed to be on and no phones, and me included, laptop goes away. I mean, so it's literally, that's our space. But it's a good time to try and find something that works for you as a family, where you can all, it's a good routine, good boundaries, and try and set those in place. Reflection and gratitude, same as it's good for children, it's good for us, but try and do something together. Reflect on your day. How did the day go? What things are you grateful for today? And sharing those experiences. Memory jar, this is another great one. Memory jar, it doesn't have to be a fancy jar, it can just be a plastic little tub. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but it's just it's a space that you can use to keep memories. So we've got one, and we've got little coloured notes, and each one means something different. But throughout the whole year, we do it as a yearly. In my family, we do it as a yearly. Me and the boys will write down happy moments. Sometimes it can be really small. The kids put one the other day where they turned around and said, we got to go to bed a little bit later. And it can be absolutely anything, but just little happy memories. And then we do it towards New Year's Eve, but it's, you know, towards the end of the year, or you might want to do it monthly, whatever that looks like for you, is just to then reflect on how things have been. Because it's really easy a lot of the time, particularly when you're a busy family, we all forget those little happy moments, those positive things, and all those fun things that we did. So it's great to try and keep something together. Be open and honest. Apologise where you need to. It's all part of that communication. Take lots of pictures. It's always a great one to look back and go, oh, remember when we did this? And again, it creates those family memories. Setting family goals, something that you want to achieve as a family. It may be that you want to go on holiday as a family when they're adults, and you think actually we'll all still do a family holiday together, whatever that looks like. But most importantly, just to take an interest in each other. Take an interest in each other. You take an interest in them, they'll take an interest in you, and an interest in each other as well. But above all of that, it is always about having fun together. The most positive thing you can do as a family to create that family network is have fun. I think the older we get, we forget how important having fun is, and just to really enjoy Just making every moment that you spend together as a family count. We are so busy, and we are a nation of becoming just busy all the time. Just take some time to have some fun together. Are there any other ideas that people have got? Now somebody's put, what a lovely idea. I don't know what that was about. Don't know which one that was.
That was your jar.
Was it the jar? Yeah, we have. I've got a little glass jar. Just like one of those £1 ones from Poundland with some little, and it's got a pen next to it, and everybody just jots down little things. So I'll be really interested to see if anybody's got any other ideas that they think are really helpful. Or anything popped up on there?
No, nothing yet.
Pop them through if anybody wants to. And sort of a few final notes is that every family is different. Okay, I know I've said a few hints and tips there, things that you can try and use, but not everything will work for everyone. And actually, you can be listening to that thinking that would not work for me, which is absolutely fine. It is about finding something that works for you and your family. Create your own positive family well-being. Everybody's different. So look at your family, what you need and what they need as a whole. But more importantly, in all of that as well, be kind to yourself. I think as parents, we are so hard on ourselves all the time. And we're always going, oh, but I should have done this and I should have done that. And we very often forget the good things that we have been doing. So just be really kind to yourself, and that will make life so much easier for you. Okay. So, and I'm going to put it out to you guys, and we've got about 5 minutes left if anybody has any questions. If you want to pop them in the chat, if you do have any questions. Is there anything you want to ask about family wellbeing, or like I said, any tips or anything that you want to say? I will stop talking for a few moments. Anybody on this call who knows me will know that is very difficult. Any questions from anyone? Don't think there are any coming up, are there?
Nothing coming up yet.
Okay, I've got a few list of resources here. Just various things that I've always found really useful. Things like Children's Society, NSPCC. Young Minds is a really good one. They've become a lot bigger in the last couple of years. NHS UK, Every Mind Matters is really good because there's lots of tips and strategies in terms of parental wellbeing and family wellbeing as well. And BBC actually had a really good link on parent wellbeing. Money Helper is a great one, you know, especially with the cost of living crisis, but it's about family, money, how to talk to our children about money. Again, something that's really important. I wanted to touch on it today, but we didn't have enough time, so maybe that'll be a webinar for the future. And there's another couple there, but raising children, Parent Line. So there's a few good ones there for you. So just want to thank everybody for taking the time out today across your lunch breaks. So thank you all for taking the time out. We had a really good turnout. If you do want any other information, please do email us, or you can contact us by LinkedIn as well. And also the recording will be on our YouTube channel as well. So if you did want to go back and have a look at that, you are most welcome. So thank you all for your time today. Have a great afternoon. Bye.